A perfect atomic scan creates your digital twin. You watch from the biological side as your double wakes up and claims your identity. Capturing the self requires mapping 86 billion neurons and trillions of synapses at a resolution of 5 nanometers to preserve functional connectivity. Destructive scanning involves slicing brain tissue into ultra-thin sections for electron microscopy. The biological original is physically dismantled to extract the data. Digital files are easily duplicated. If 5 copies of your mind are instantiated simultaneously, each subjective experience immediately begins to diverge through unique sensory input. You do not feel the copy. To the original observer, uploading looks like looking into a camera and then continuing to exist in the biological body. Patternism suggests you are the arrangement of data, not the physical atoms. If the pattern is preserved, the person persists regardless of the underlying substrate. Biological naturalism argues that consciousness is a specific biological process. Silicon chips might simulate the behavior of neurons without ever producing subjective feeling or qualia. Replacing neurons one by one with nanobots maintains functional continuity. As each biological unit is swapped for a digital equivalent, the stream of consciousness remains unbroken.
Hans Moravec proposed a robot surgeon replacing brain parts while you are awake. You converse with the surgeon, transitioning from organic thought to synthetic processing mid-sentence. Functionalism posits that if a system processes inputs and produces outputs identically to a human brain, it must possess the same internal mental states and identity. Mapping synapses is insufficient. We must also capture the varying strengths of those connections, known as synaptic weights, which store your specific learned skills and memories. Glial cells were once thought to be simple glue, but they modulate neural signaling. Digital uploads must simulate these non-neural cells to maintain cognitive stability and personality. The brain is an electrochemical organ. Local concentrations of dopamine, serotonin, and hormones determine mood and decision-making, requiring high-fidelity simulation of the chemical environment. If OR theory is correct, consciousness relies on quantum vibrations in microtubules. If so, a classical digital scan would miss the essential mechanism of the sentient mind. Upon uploading, the original and the copy become 2 separate legal and psychological entities. They are no longer the same person, but rather 2 people with a shared past.
A backup created yesterday lacks the memories of today. If the original dies now, the restored backup faces a gap in continuity, creating a disjointed personal narrative. Who owns your digital mind? If a corporation hosts your consciousness on their servers, your existence might be subject to terms of service and hardware maintenance schedules. Running a digital mind on faster hardware allows for subjective centuries of thought to pass in mere seconds of real-world time, radically altering the experience of existence. Digital minds require electricity and processing power. In a world of millions of uploads, the cost of living becomes a literal struggle for compute cycles and server priority. If a digital copy is a person, then turning off the server is an act of termination. Legal systems must decide if deleting a file constitutes the ending of a life. An upload requires a high-fidelity virtual reality. Without sensory feedback from a simulated body and environment, the human mind quickly descends into sensory deprivation-induced psychosis. Digital minds could theoretically edit their own code. Removing a phobia or increasing focus becomes a matter of adjusting a few variables, challenging the concept of a stable self.
A digital consciousness is vulnerable to malware and unauthorized access. Hacking could allow outside actors to alter your memories, beliefs, or core motivations without your knowledge. Digital uploads enable interstellar travel. Instead of massive generation ships, we can beam compressed consciousness data to distant star systems at the speed of light. Digital platforms allow for the merging of multiple minds into a single hive consciousness.
The boundaries of the self dissolve as thoughts and memories are shared across a network. A digital mind might pass the Turing test perfectly while lacking any inner light. We have no objective way to prove a simulation is actually feeling anything at all. If every person in a large nation simulated one neuron by passing notes, would the nation itself become conscious? This challenges the idea that any complex computation produces a mind. Global workspace theory suggests consciousness arises when information is broadcast across the brain. A digital system must replicate this architecture to ensure the upload is truly awake. Can a computer feel the redness of a rose? If qualia are non-computational, then digital uploads will forever remain sophisticated mimics rather than truly sentient beings.
Integrated information theory measures consciousness with a value called phi. An upload's validity depends on whether its digital architecture maintains high levels of internal informational integration. Sleep and anesthesia provide a natural analogy for uploading. We already survive daily interruptions in consciousness, suggesting that a digital restart might not be a death of the self. Personal identity may simply be the chain of memories and personality traits. If the digital mind remembers your childhood and shares your values, it is effectively you. A teleporter that destroys you and rebuilds you elsewhere is essentially a mind upload. If you wouldn't step into the booth, you shouldn't step into the scanner. Digital minds spread across different servers face latency. If parts of your brain are separated by miles, your internal thoughts would slow down to the speed of light. The primary appeal of uploading is escaping senescence. A digital mind can exist for as long as the hardware is maintained and the energy supply remains constant. Once uploaded, you might find yourself in a simulation within a simulation. There is no way to verify if the root reality is truly biological or just another layer. If your spouse cannot tell the difference between you and your upload after a day of deep conversation, is the distinction between original and copy even meaningful anymore? Will your digital self become unreadable as technology evolves? Future civilizations might lack the emulators needed to run 21st century human mind architecture, leading to permanent digital extinction. The most harrowing version of uploading is the non-destructive scan. You survive the procedure only to realize the version of you that gets to be immortal is someone else. Governments could potentially throttle the processing speed of digital citizens based on social behavior. Your very perception of time and quality of life could be used as a tool for control. Digital uploads are not limited to 5 senses. They could directly perceive the electromagnetic spectrum, infrared, or even raw stock market data as a primary sensory experience. Perfect scans are data intensive. If we use lossy compression to save server space, we might accidentally delete the subtle nuances that make you a unique individual. Is it ethical to create 1,000 copies of a brilliant researcher to solve a crisis? This commodification of the soul treats human consciousness as a scalable utility. Uploading offers a tangible version of an afterlife. However, it is an afterlife created by engineers, subject to bugs, crashes, and the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. Mind uploading rests on the belief that consciousness is emergent from complexity. If this is true, our digital future is a matter of when, not if, we master the scan. Reassembling a mind from a scan is the ultimate engineering challenge. We are close to mapping the brain, but simulating it in real time remains the final frontier of transhumanism. Ultimately, you will never know if the upload is you until you make the jump. It is a decision between a guaranteed biological end and a theoretical digital beginning. Whether it is a clone or a continuation depends on your definition of the self. In the age of digital minds, identity is no longer a fact, but a choice.